Okay. All right. You ready?
Going live.
Oh. Good morning. Good afternoon. And good evening to
Oh,
everybody
it's
who
actually
has
evening.
coffee. What's up? Give the lore master a moment.
I didn't know you were in your starting screen. Sorry.
I stay in my starting screen. I thought I announced this. It's all right. No biggie.
It's okay, I'm just pressing live. And
Yeah,
I'm live.
we're just turning the cameras on. That's all we're doing.
We're just turning the cameras on. We're just turning the cameras on. That's
That's
all we're
it.
doing. Don't worry about the man and the person
It feels
behind the
good
screen.
to be awake. It feels good to be alive. Let's give all of our
Mm.
friends some time to get to their seats, set up their lurks, and do what they're doing.
And do what they're doing.
Oh, I wonder what map program Killer
Yeah.
Bits uses.
Yeah,
Interesting.
man. Yeah, man.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
Let's
man.
see, just get my stream manager set up here so I can see your little chat bubs. Little chat
Oh,
bubbles.
stream couldn't hear me. It's a good thing we're not
See?
we're not we're not professionals here. Don't worry
Mm-hmm.
about it.
Mm.
Don't
Speak for
worry
yourself.
about
I
it.
made $1 on Steam Community yesterday, so
Oh, excuse me.
kind of a professional artist,
Yeah, kind of a professional artist.
you know. So speak for yourself.
You know what? I'll just keep my mouth shut. I'm just gonna stop speaking, actually.
uh, listen, you got us here, so give yourself a little
No,
pat on the
no.
back.
Please do not put this all on me.
No, not at all, but I'll give you some credit.
It's your fault. If you didn't keep showing up, we wouldn't be here.
That is fair.
It is
So,
your fault. You did this.
I'm definitely the type of person who looks back at life and I'm just like, yeah, I had a lot of help doing what I was doing. I might have done a lot of the work and had to be like my biggest like supporter, right? Which you should be. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but like I don't discredit like the help I've gotten along the way. You know, I have friends and
Mm-hmm.
people that have looked out for me, even if it's a stranger just giving me a chance, or you know, all sorts of different opportunities have been given. So
No, I mean, there are very few people that have been there since the beginning of the Lore Masters Guild, and yeah, I don't think I would be able to do it without y'all. I wouldn't, like I said, I don't think I would still be here had it not been for the people we gathered along the way who decided to
stick
stick it through
around.
with us. Yeah,
Just
to
I
stick
guess
around to
to
see
just
what we're
not leave.
about. Yeah, very that. I mean, it's the internet, so it's like feels very non-committal to people, but I'm
Yeah.
appreciative to the people that did make that commitment, and decided to stay
Yeah,
for the long
I
term, the long
totally
haul.
kind of
4 years, baby. 4 years,
really,
baby.
yeah, that's a long time, hey. It's a long
It's
time for
four
anything.
years.
You know what? That's funny because we were having that conversation the other day where I was talking about like my college career and just like the 4 years I spent there, yada yada, and very much like intentional friendship or you know whatever, just choosing to stay, you know, right? Stuff like that.
Right.
That whole conversation we are having. And then look at that, lo and behold, like Lore Masters has been about 4 years, right? So that's
In
pretty
4 years.
interesting. Yeah, wow.
4 years that we chose to do all this.
And look, and we're still hanging out.
And we're still hanging out.
Very
For all the
nice.
abuse I give you, you're still here.
Yes.
For all the cranky mornings, for all the annoying younger sibling behavior, you're still here. You're still here.
So what are you getting into today, Lore Master? What do you think?
Oh, oh. Oh, well, first and foremost, welcome to the stream, y'all. If you don't already know, I am the Lore Master, owner and operator of the Lore Masters Guild, where we bring content creators and dungeon masters and would-be actors and players to a small but lovely community um, that is also a dedicated Pokemon server. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. You can come play an idle Pokemon RPG at our server. People seem to love it.
And
That's
we
neither here nor there.
are we are working on an D&D idle RPG as well, which might not,
Oh God!
be
Don't
something
don't plug
that's,
that yet. That's
this is not ready to be plugged, but a
I'm gonna
project.
be
So
scared. You're
it
scaring me,
starts.
Mitchell. You're
It's
scaring me.
we're taking notes from the from the Pokemon RPG here, and it's an idea that
Yeah,
we've had in the past, and we've done some work onto it, but throw it on the
yeah,
stack of our
yeah.
million projects.
Our million projects. Yeah, the city of Luror is in works. The which was funny fact, 4 years ago, the whole reason I started this server was to
Really?
make this game. Yes,
That's crazy.
yes. Because we could have stayed on Google and we could have stayed quiet, but we went public and I started making, started the ideas, the beginning bones of the game system and the beginning bones of what we were looking at.
For
Um,
Loror? Really? I was all
for
way back then.
Luror, way, way, way,
I
way back
mean,
then. That's why we are the Lore
you've
Masters Guild and
you've
all that
always
good
dreamed
stuff.
big, my friend. It's the one thing
That's my
I admire
superpower.
about you is that you always
That
dream
is my
big.
superpower. That's my superpower. I gotta claim it. I gotta
Yeah.
claim it. Only thing I
Well,
got is the power of dreams.
the power
Um,
of dream.
but, but yes, we do have an idle RPG for Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition that's coming. Don't sue us, Wizards of the Coast. We're gonna make something cool, and you're gonna like it, and then you're gonna sponsor us. Just let us finish first. Um, but with that being said, today, besides my shameless plug, where I'm going to tell you to join the Lore Masters Guild to do all of these fun things, to play games with us on Mondays, where we have One Shot Mondays, to play Magic with us on Friday Night Magic nights, if you're a Magic the Gathering fan, and all that good stuff in between that pops up with our new moderators and our new content creators who are joining the fold. Today, we are revisiting the College of Knowledge, which is a course that I've created that just goes over the general rules and some ideas and tactics on not only playing the game, but also on how to master the game. So, without further ado, I'm gonna stop talking for a second and let Mitchell tell you guys what he's gonna be up to today. And turn my music down a little because it's a little too loud.
So I'll just be joining in on the convo per usual, and I'll probably just be doing some basic maps. I was telling you the past few days, it's kind of been like a few weeks of premonition that I want to kind
Yeah.
of just change my gears around and kind of change the directive of map making. I spent yesterday kind of getting all my files and stuff organized, because the more and more maps and stuff you make, the more daunting it becomes in your file folder. So please keep those things organized for your own sake. But yeah, so today I think I'll just be doing like some just some paths, just some roads. I thought, just like an obscure road that in the forest or in the desert or in the swamp or in the etc. And I think
Oh yeah.
I wanted to first tell my neighbors, "Hey Drew,
Mm. LOL. Typical cartographer stream. Out in the wilderness, running around, wreaking havoc.
my
But
neighbor's dog's out." Sorry. So essentially, what I want to do um is kind of see what Dungeon Alchemist has as far as like the ecosystems or styles, right? So swamp,
Hmm.
forest, desert, etc., and kind of just map all those out. And I'll do a road on each of them, and it'll be twofold. It'll be, hey, I'm making just these obscure road maps for dungeon masters to use, right? But also I'll be able to visualize very easily like all the different styles I should be trying to emulate when I do things, right?
Mm.
So this will be like my list. I'll be like, okay, I have five ecosystems that I should try to hit every time I do one of these maps, right?
Hell yeah. And then you sort of have like a base of iteration, which we love.
Iteration, which we love,
We love
exactly.
iteration. We do. Makes making things a lot easier. That's for sure.
I think
It makes it a
it,
lot more accessible.
and honestly, like for the ADHD brain, it's really helpful for me. I tend to wander and stray and get excited about things, which is great and is awesome. But like focus, channel, directive, has shown to definitely be helpful
Mm-hmm.
in my creation process, whether it be like my professional career, just life in general. Skills in D
Oh
and
yeah.
D can translate into your real life, especially interpersonal and personal skills.
I agree 110,000%. I think it's a very psychological game that uh, one can explore a lot of things deep within you that you never expected to explore, and two can completely change your perspective on how you deal with other people in this waking world, that we live in. So I think there's a lot of aspects to it that go unexplored at the average table filled with murder hobos, but we like to tell very productive,
Well,
very high epic fantasy stories. We like the meat and the
text me.
bones.
Maybe that's a fun place that we could start today. Is maybe just like say a couple things about like what Dungeons and Dragons has kind of done for us as a person, or what has how it has benefited our lives. And I
Is this a
think
Dungeons and Dragons an anonymous group?
I'm not even. I mean, just so we could just chat about it and just let it be that, right? But um,
Hi everyone. Hi Lore
hey
Master.
Stormy, what's going on, buddy? Um, yeah, hi, cartographer. I'm the cartographer. I've
Hi
been at the
cartographer.
I've been at the Lore Masters Guild for 4 years. Um,
Claps. Everyone claps all around.
but one thing that definitely I have noticed for me is I have become much more patient. As somebody who has
Mm.
ADHD and has a lot of ideas and is very passionate, I've always had been the first one to talk or always had a question like in class, right? Always had an idea at work, and in D&D you're forced to hear what other people have to say, and you're forced to kind of care about that,
Gross.
and also in that same breath, I tend to think of something to say very fast. I'm a talkative person. I got a lot to say, right? Some people need more time. Some people need a couple seconds before they have something to say. Um, and in that patience that I've learned to say things better. I've learned to take my time and think a little bit before I deliver a role play or try to direct a scene.
Mm.
And I think I've gotten my role play quality has gotten a bit better because of that, because I'm not so scared to say wait 3 seconds to think and then react, right?
It's the impulsivity.
Right, exactly.
I like that a lot. I love that for you. I didn't learn anything from D&D because I'm already a super special snowflake that knows everything.
Mm-hmm.
But if I did, if I did learn anything, no, I think patience is a good one. I think for me, I definitely learned how to be a better leader. I definitely have been put through a lot of tough situations as a dungeon master. where I've had to wrangle, mediate, and mitigate personalities.
Mm.
I think it's also made me much more insightful, um, especially regarding other people and their motives and the things that they want and the things that they enjoy, because that's my job. It's to give them what they want and what they enjoy, to motivate them, to entice them to do the thing that the story necessitates, but perhaps they didn't think of as a need or a want. But myself as the storyteller, I am the mediator, right? And I am the narrator, and I have to make sure that at the end of all this, we told a story and we accomplished something. You know, it's very easy to just run around in circles and run combats and uh, run non sequitur storylines and have them do fetch quests the entire campaign. But when they look back after a month and or a year or so, and they see that they've really not done anything, um, that can feel pretty defeating. That can feel like a waste of time. And I think I've learned a lot about how to. Um, I just learned how to collaborate with people. I've learned how to uh, collaborate and teach. I think are
Mm.
probably the biggest things that I've learned from D&D. I think I've become a much better teacher, a much better mediator and collaborator.
Awesome. We love it.
And I got a little mini psych degree from it all.
I think I mean, that's something that I've spoken about on my channel all the time, is that more times than not, Dungeons and Dragons is a social project, and dungeon masters innately just have to take the position of HR because you have four, five, six personalities, you have emotional, connections to characters, and you have long-term interaction, right? So just with all those things, human beings will, rub heads a little bit, might not
Yeah,
always agree, might just have a bad day and not, communicate effectively. And I think a lot of these, if when we look at the things that maybe make us, like act that way or act out at times, we can apply that to other people. So I don't
right.
really love the conversation of like problem player or even murder hobo in a sense because I feel like there's more words that can describe those things. Um, and like for like problem player, like a lot of times it's just miscommunication, right?
I don't know. Some
It's
people are murder hobos.
Some people are murder hobos, but in the game of D&D, if you have four murder hobos and a murder hobo dungeon master, is anything wrong? Is everybody happy? Right? Go frickin' hack and slash away. Have chaos, right? I've seen campaigns like that, and I'm like, you know what? That's a little wild for me, but I see five people having a blast.
It's
Like,
true. True, it's true.
so like don't it's like a don't judge or like don't yuck my yum, right? It's like I like to do what I like to do, and I think again that's like the
You know,
conversation
that is
that
very valid.
that
Yeah.
that, that miscommunication is like people have a lot of times struggle admitting like, hey, I don't like this type of play style. I would like to find a different party, and that's normally like a negative thing, like leaving a party and finding a new party.
Mm,
And this is a big social experiment, right? The better
yeah.
you can engage relationships and let your relationships go, have boundaries, respect others, and all these different types of personal social skills, the better you will be at finding games, keeping games, and having fun at your table.
Oh, I see that 110%. I'm actually going to change my answer. Communication. My answer
Okay.
is communication. That's what I've learned the most from D&D, because communication is the tool that helps with everything. Which I think kind of segues into today's table talk via the College of Knowledge.
Mm.
Um, we're gonna talk about, since we already talked about the types of dice, we talked about rolling, we talked about customization, we talked about basically the general ideas of the rules and interpreting them. But what's really important, as the master of not only these rules but master of the game, um, are Lines and Veils, which we didn't really talk too much about. We kind of mentioned, but this goes into table rules. I have a lot of different table rules at my each of my games. For the most part, they speak to the safety of other players and yourself and myself as the dungeon master, and they also add additional things that make the game feel and make more sense, in my opinion. Um, so things like advanced experience, um, which is a system that I crafted simply because there's a large gap in the way that experience is done in Dungeons and Dragons for those of us who aren't combatants. And I know that sounds strange, playing a fantasy role-playing game that's built around a combat system, but I'm the type of player, when I do play, that wants to do something that's really subversive, that's really interesting. Um, and oftentimes I will play a character who doesn't speak common and has to find another way to communicate, or find a player who wants to be a pacifist, sorry, make a character who wants to be a pacifist,
Hmm.
um, and create like a sanctuary cleric. And
Not even like
uh,
take a Githyanki and make them not an evil warmonger. Like
lots of things. It takes turns in lots of different ways. And I know that there are a lot of players who like the style as well, but the game itself doesn't lend it to that. So I've created something called the Advanced XP system, which we'll talk about a little later. But before we get into that, I do want to talk about safety tools. I want to talk about what it means to be a good communicator and why it's so important
mm,
to be a good communicator as the dungeon master. Not just as a player, but specifically as the dungeon master, the person who's facilitating, mediating the game. Um, but I feel like you also understand this very well. You've not only DM'd, but you've been at my table for a very long time, and I think you've seen these tools evolve. You've seen these things take form. Um,
yeah,
but
no, for sure.
what
And
are some of the...
honestly, it's funny that you say that because thinking about it, I've incorporated these types of things into my everyday D&D habits to the regard that I don't even know they are things. And
Uh,
like I'll be out and I started putting a post out for my Daggerford campaign, right? And I really did a poor job at advertising, what was being offered because you know, in conversation, and I've always kind of been like this when I talk about things, I express myself much better than in writing. Um, but I started talking about it with a couple people that were helping me out, giving me advice, and they're like, "Oh my god, like you do this too, like, and you do that." You're like, "Those should. Why aren't you telling people that you have these types of safety checks in your game, right? These are things that can be used as tools or can be advertised as tools to and that those are uh, things like session zeros and
yeah,
lines and veils, stars and
yeah,
wishes,
yeah,
all these different types of concepts. And what I think is when you start incorporating these large macro type ideas of safety checks, it just begins you in this way of thinking, and you're much more aware to people's needs and in your own
yeah,
needs in that regard as well. um, and so it just changes the way you start, interacting with your players and things that might, sway you. And to that regard, another conversation I was having a couple weeks ago with someone on the channel, I feel like a lot of these issues of quote unquote problem player, or in my words, miscommunications, right? They start to
right.
wash away and you look back at a year
Yes.
long campaign, or you get a new group dynamic with say two new party members, and you're like, hey, why isn't anybody having a bad time? Oh, because we have all these safety checks set up, and we have people who are aware of empathy and sharing table time and like all yes and right. um
Right.
And a lot of that like
No,
is
exactly.
is
Yeah.
credit is just credit to how we do things on the Lore Masters channel, and things you've taught me. And I think I've been rather fortunate in the regard of like you've learned a lot of things in the past 4 years, and together we've been doing a lot of work as far as D&D and tabletop related stuff. So the growth I've kind of seen and been there with you. So like things you learn, I learn, right? Like we build each other up.
Right. And vice versa. I've learned a lot from you as well, and I think that's like the whole communication thing, right?
Mhm.
Um, but it really is the conversation is always multifaceted. Um, there's always a lot of intersectionality, and I think that's why communication is so important. And these tools really are just communication tools. They keep the line of communication open, and not only do they keep it open, but they prompt yourself, they prompt your players to be communicative. So, especially for people who find that a little harder to, they find it harder to speak their mind or to posit ideas or say the thing that's kind of brewing in the back of their head. Um, this gives them the opportunity and an open stage and open floor to do so. I think
Mm.
that's really important and has helped a lot. Um, but what are some of your favorite tools? Let's start there.
So
Uh,
what I'm thinking of, and this is like kind of to piggyback off what you're saying there, how players will join in to the vibe, right? And this is something that you started like at the very beginning. We did this like way back when, which was having uh, uh, players do the recap.
oh, that's a good one. That's a good one, and that's a good place to
And
start.
me personally have thought different ways about this several times. At first I was like, why are you making me do this? And then I was like, I didn't take notes last session, so now I'm like trying to remember, um, or like I'm just like maybe not in the mood, right? And then I started realizing, all the things it did for me in a benefit, right? And then I started like changing my perception on it, and I've learned so much about it. And I think one thing that it comes to mind is just getting players involved. So when a player is trying to do the recap and say they forget, we will often just coax them to another party member. And now you have one, two, three party members now getting involved, sitting at the table, right, with their brains, trying to build the world together. So you're immersing your players back into the world that they've been playing. But this little side piece that I really love about it, which is for me, it's what encouraged me to be a dungeon master. And it
Hmm.
started with like, hey, like I could just do a really dry recap of all the notes here, and that's fun. Or I can maybe just like put a little narration on it and just kind of, ham it up a little bit. And like you gave me a compliment and I was like, oh, I guess I was kind of decent. And like then I started thinking about it. I was like, oh, you know what? Like, I could just narrate for 3 hours, right? Like, and just do this whole thing. I was like, why haven't I been doing this? And it's always been a confidence thing for me. So
Hmm.
that little chance to kind of, I guess, be forced or coaxed into getting out of my shell, which is a tool used in theater all the time. You just make people feel uncomfortable in a good way, because when you feel comfortable in an uncomfortable situation, you are now truly free to express your creativity, right? And that's
Hmm.
kind of what it did for me, and it gave me that little confidence boost to be like, hey, why don't I just try it and do it? And then, 2 years later, I've been DMing for a good amount of time. I've created my own games, I've created one shots, and that's all, in my opinion, due in part to having your players do recaps.
I love it. That makes me so happy. I seriously love to hear it. I think the recap for me started mostly because I wanted to make sure that my players were engaged, they were involved, and they weren't passengers in the story.
Mhm.
Before that, I had always hated showing up to the game and everyone's like, "Oh, what happened last week?" or "What are we doing?" or "What's going on?"
And it takes like 30 minutes for everybody to kind of figure it out.
And even still, because I'm feeding it to them, because I have to give them. We always, and like this is to harp on. We always sit here and we say, "Don't lore dump on your characters." Well, isn't me sitting here giving you the recap of what you did last session lore dump?
I guess you know what, and that's another eye opening. I never really thought about it like that, and I guess yes, in a regard, yes.
Me sitting here word vomiting what you did is gonna leave you sitting there passively absorbing the information. You're not living it. And
Mm.
the only way to really hold on to that experience is to sort of live through that experience. And storytelling, in my opinion, is one of the ways that you can vicariously live through experiences that are not only impossible but very possible. You read nonfiction and you live vicariously through that experience. You read fiction, you
Hmm.
live vicariously through that experience. Science fiction, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, whatever it may be. Reading is that escape into the fourth dimensional world where you get to live in a space completely made out of your own psyche. So the only way I feel like you can really solidify these things um, is to just make sure that the players are invested and the players are also doing the work. And that's sort of the first part of why I created the recap. But I'm glad that it's been impactful to you too, and I also am glad that I've seen it expand across not just my games, but I see um, I see that there are a lot of um, different DMs that have sort of come from my games that now use it,
And that's kind
and
of
that makes me really happy.
that's what I was saying before, where there's like all these things that I do that I don't even realize I'm doing, and that's just a byproduct of just being, I guess, raised in a really healthy D&D environment, right? D&D community. Um, so yeah. Let's see here. So I think I'm just
Yeah.
gonna do like straight roads, nothing fancy. I'm
Ooh.
just gonna do a straight road in each biome, and then I guess a project of mine could be, add a curved road to each biome, add a fork road
I
to
have to.
each biome.
How can I?
This is kind of what I was thinking
Um,
with
I want to.
the connecting maps
Anybody?
that have like a vibe or like a theme, right? You can piece together several of these road maps to make a journey.
If anybody knows how to grab someone else's stream and show it on your stream, let me know. 'Cause I want to
Um,
show Mitchell's maps and whatnot, but I don't want to go on to Twitch and have to watch his ads.
I have ads off. They're off,
Yeah,
off.
they. I think they're off as in like you're not making money, but like I still see them every time I pop onto your channel.
Are you still getting pre-rolls? They should be
Yeah.
off, off. Stormy, did you get ads?
Let me check. Let me double check. Let me double check. Cartographer. It's
Did you
like
get one today though?
there's a literal ad right now. I'm literally watching an ad. And
Ah!
it literally immediately gave me an ad.
What do I do?
I'm telling you, I think they just like they're like, okay, you don't want money. And that's it,
What?
bruh.
I don't want 30 cents for the month of April? I guess I could pass. I'd rather have my people watch me than get 30 cents for the month of April.
If your people still don't get to watch you without the ads.
I guess
Just
so.
take the 30 cents. Take the
I
30
guess
cents.
so. I'll figure out how to do this.
Yeah, I think once you hit affiliate, they're just gonna throw ads on your channel no matter what. That's what it seems like because you said you turned it off, and I do believe you.
Let's see.
Um. So another tool besides recap, since you did the first one, the one that I think I like the most,
Mhm.
it's evolved a lot. It's actually the first tool that I ever used. Um, it's actually nominations.
Ah, yeah, yeah.
Nominations are my favorite. It's another way to engage players. So it's I and it created the recap. Um, because I did nominations and it made people reflect on the session. And I thought, why aren't I doing this all the time? Why don't
Mm.
we open close the session this way?
Yeah, right. There you go. Twofold.
Exactly. So, um, the concept of nominations, which now is turned into Stars and Wishes, which Stars and Wishes I found somewhere else, and I was like, oh, great. This is already kind of what I do, but they added something that I think I want to add into this conversation. But nominations started off as just a way to recognize some fun moments that you had during the session and to give shout outs to other players that really brought the experience or elevated the experience for you and the table itself. And the way that it worked is that at the end of the session, usually around like the mark where we're going to end in 20 minutes, hey
Mm.
Shy, thanks for tuning in, um, is that the table starts with one person. Usually I nominate someone. And the nomination is based on a moment that you thought was really cool, really poignant, something that was mechanical, something that was role play, whatever it may be.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, you just give a shout out to that person. You give them your nomination. Um, and with that nomination, um, the person with the most votes at the end of that sort of whole roundup would end up with an inspiration point, um, which never get used. But
Well,
that's beside the point.
that's something that
That's
I'm
beside
trying
the
to
point.
figure out with my next, campaign, which is trying to make inspiration more of a thing. Find a
Yeah.
mechanic that actually resonates with my players, that can be used moving forward. Because right now, no matter how hard we try, it's just we just can't get it to work.
It's unfortunate.
It
It's
is,
very
but
unfortunate. Like,
put it on the stack of many things to do. It's getting
many
bigger.
things to
It's
do.
getting
I'm gonna pass that
bigger
one off to
by the
you.
moment.
I'm gonna let you make
I have
inspiration better.
several sheets. I have several iterations. I've had many conversations about it on this channel and abroad.
And a branch. Um, but yeah, so stars grant inspiration, and essentially I would start by picking one of the characters that I thought, did a really good job or did something really interesting. Um, and we would talk a little bit about why I thought that was so cool or why I thought, it was so important. Um, and I'll pass it off to them, and they'll pick their nomination. Um, Now we added wishes to this recently. I think maybe like the past couple months. We haven't been doing wishes very long, but they've been so helpful, especially as I've started the mercenary playtest,
Mm,
which is a class that I started building maybe like 2, 3 years ago with Mitchell here, the cartographer,
thank you.
and uh, you're welcome.
You're
Um,
welcome.
you're welcome. Uh, and wishes are essentially a way to ask for what you want. They're essentially a
Yeah.
way to talk about what you like about the game, what you like about um, the table, and what you don't like. uh, and to use an open format to speak about those things. If you uh, watch any of my YouTube videos and you see those stars and wishes in action, you'll see exactly why I use the wishes now, and you'll see how they actually change the game. Um, like in the World of Darkness, which we're running Wednesday nights, which will be live tonight, um, you can see that a table talk at the end of the session that we had where we were doing stars and wishes de- devolved into, or I shouldn't say devolved, evolved into a rework of a character, and some reworks of lines and veils and all these different things that were very important to keep the table culture um, friendly and to keep the table culture uh, uh, collaborative.
Mm,
Just because there's a lot of very intense themes that we're dealing with in that game. So
hmm.
keeping the conversation open all the time, keeping that line of communication open all the time is so, so, so very important. So I think that wishes are probably one of my favorite tools that we brought to the table for that reason. But the combination of the two brings a lightheartedness to the conversation with stars. You know, you
Mm.
get to talk about the fun thing, and then you kind of get to talk about the bad thing if there is a bad thing.
Yeah, there you go.
Um,
Like a good bad sandwich, right? Which
yeah,
is always helpful
exactly.
for I think everybody. What I love about Stars and Wishes, and it's two things. It's one of the best tools to create a healthy communication for your dungeon master, for yourself, usually, right? To give your people what they want, right? Like if you're a cook in the kitchen and every time you make a dish, you're like, oh, I don't like mushrooms. You're like, well, if I just fucking knew you didn't like mushrooms, I wouldn't have put them in the dish. You know, and a lot of times that's as a DM, you're just like, I wish my players would just talk about it more. And a lot of times, if you don't create that healthy environment, it feels hard for people to do it. It feels like it's a negative conversation, like, and that kind of removes that negativity from it and makes it a very positive conversation. Um, and also, I think again for the players, I think another thing that I love about Stars and Wishes is not everybody is as vocal as everyone else. So I, as a
Hmm.
person, and being aware of all these tools and being aware of wanting my wants and needs, like I might have this conversation with my dungeon master very privately on the side, nicely and supportive, but somebody else might not. Somebody else might not have the words to do that. And that's not to say that they don't have the need to do that, right? And I think this is a tool that a dungeon master can give that, helps people who aren't so talkative, a little bit, they're quiet or shy, it gives them an outlet to have a voice and to be heard. Um, yeah, so a lot of really good things can come from such a small, simple thing. It takes, what, 5 minutes at the end of a session, and it's a great way to just kind of round the session out and just kind of cap it off.
Hmm. I couldn't have said it better myself. Could not have said it better myself. What other tools? I'm thinking. Chat, if you have any tools that you use at your table, please.
Yeah, yeah, Storm is a dungeon master. What do you do, Storm, to help your players? Whether it be, keep them happy and entertained at the table, or ways to keep people safe, respect boundaries. Because they come in all shapes and forms and sizes. There's many ways you can approach this conversation. Stormy also says that they joined the stream and was instantly forced to ads. I don't know what to do, Storm. I've been trying. I'm trying.
Telling you, they're gonna make the ads come either way.
Dude, it's like,
The ads are gonna come either way.
there we go. I think let me try this. I'll try this. Alrighty. I just gotta get the center here. I just don't want so much of this. This is like more like it's more rocky. So like I just wanted take my time and or not take my time. I want to just not spend a lot of time on these maps. But in the same regard, like the first rendition of this was like it just the road looked like it was a rock road, and that just is weird. So like I couldn't accept it. There can be some rock and rubble in it.
What's that tool that you used at your table?
Come again?
What's a tool that you used at your table?
Me?
Mm-hmm.
I've done recap. Well, I like to do recap on and off because sometimes there's really important story pieces that I want to deliver. Um, so every now and then I'll be like, "Hey guys, I got it. No big deal." But I do use that one. I want to incorporate Stars and Wishes. I just haven't really ran a session since we started doing that one. um, I always and forever will do session zeros, and I think I want to change the way I do session zero. And I want to start more of a conversation of, uh, what is the game we want to play? Like, what is the story we want to build? A lot of times, my session zeros were focused on just boundaries and needs, wants, lines, and veils, which is good. Not going to get rid of those things. But I'm going to then steer the conversation to okay, now that we have just established, how we're going to, coexist, let's talk about, what we're going to be doing while we coexist and what's that going to look like and what do we want and kind of try to hash out a lot of these wants and needs like a big star and wish almost for an overarching star and wish for the campaign in a regard. So as
Hmm.
opposed to checking in, every session after I've, done a lot of work prepping and prepared a bunch of stuff, before I get into all that jazz, I want to talk to everybody. And I want it to be a group conversation too, because, you know, very much, if the party comes together and like one player says, "Oh, I have this idea for this character, but I don't know," and everyone's like, "No, no, like you could do it. Let's build a party around that. That's totally fine." Like give them that ability to build the party and then have that build the story. Um,
Hmm. Very that. This is what we love. I think that kind of pulls to lines and veils, right? Which are super important.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Because that's definitely how I got there, which was,
How do you? I think you're probably going to tell me right now, but I was going to say, how do you use lines and veils at your table? Just for people who aren't familiar.
so lines and veils essentially is just a declaration of boundaries, and I think again, having a healthy conversation around stuff like this is important, because a lot of times people aren't necessarily comfortable talking about what they're comfortable with and where that line is, right? And I think it's more or less a tool to just start the conversation, and you don't need to be like, hey, what is my absolute furthest line that I'll set and declare. You don't really have to search yourself that deep. um, it's really just to create a healthy conversation around what is okay and what's not okay. And I say that because normally in Dungeons and Dragons I've run into this pretty frequently. My last post that I put up, I was like, I had all these tags for no reason, and I'm like, I'm really not touching on any of these subjects. It's just the general gist of D&D, right? Like, um, but D&D tends to be a fairly light-hearted role play scenario. You can get into some grimdark stuff and some deep horror stuff, and you should always be communicating those tags. But like the general fantasy depiction of D&D, or at least when I run a D&D campaign, is a fairly light-hearted. So in comparison, if I was to do a Vampire Masquerade post, I would be much more
Mm-hmm.
in depth about where those lines are being set, because that is a game that intentionally goes towards those lines and seeks them out and pushes players to their boundaries. Um, so I just love the concept of setting up the healthy conversation for lines and veils, and letting players know that and I think a good way to do that is to just maybe just write off a bunch of, hot ticket items that, just probably won't even be approached. And I think the first and foremost thing as when you're doing Alliance and Veils is, as a dungeon master, to set yours and to let the players know, hey, this is what I'm okay to run, and these are things that won't be happening in my game. And in letting that be first and known, um, starts a conversation and lets players know what they have to talk about and what they don't, Um, and yeah, I mean, how do you approach Lines and Veils?
Yeah, I mean, very much the same way, you know. We start off our session zero, I like to call them these days, I like to call them writers' rooms, because it's
Sure.
also the same time that we talk about themes, we talk about the directions we want to go, we talk about um, ideas for the story, and we talk about what sort of media or books or art kind of influences our choices
Hmm.
for the character that we created or the ideas that we have, bringing some of those things
Oh,
into
can I pause you real
the world.
quick? Because
Of
that
course.
brings up such a great thing in roleplay that happens all the time, and that helps people, solve it. And that is, what I see in my brain might not be exactly what you see in your brain. And I
Hmm.
think it's super, super important for your character who you've built, because you spent so much time building this character, and then you introduce it, and then we all role play and we do our session, and someone might misinterpret your character down the road, which is going to be a miscommunication. It's going to rub you the wrong way, and then it's going to take time to rebuild that and for you to reestablish who you are as a character. And you can just nip that in the bud by adding that type of conversation, right? And it's so small. It's like these few sentences can help so many things for a 6 month, 1 year campaign, So small. That's it. Tangent. Sorry.
Oh, it was no, please, not a tangent at all. It was very much on the point of what we were talking about. But all of these things is about um communication, and none of these things exist without communication. And I think
Mm.
lines and veils are like the best basis of communication that you could start with. Um, oh no, hold on, I gotta just re-upload this real quick. Um, uh, Recaps, stars and wishes, lines and veils. I think that's the wider gamut. Do you have another tool that you use? I can't think of any other ones. Hmm.
One thing that
Yes.
I would
I
like to
guess yes and could be a tool.
yes
Sorry, go ahead.
and yes and is definitely a tool, and we can talk about that. But just to keep my brain fresh, um, one thing I would like to just bring up about like lines and veils and boundaries and stuff like that is a conversation that doesn't have to be beholden to session zero, and that's a mentality that I think should be brought up. And I often you see like in my session zeros, even as the player, I'll be like, hey guys, I think it's a good idea to keep this, on our brain at all times. We don't have to have session zero just at the beginning. We could have it halfway through. We could have it every 3 sessions. We could have it just because you had a session that you didn't enjoy and you want to make sure that you will enjoy the next session, right? And just creating the healthy conversation and making people, okay with sharing their thoughts and emotions. And it might sound silly and very like, I don't know, like psychiatrists or something, but like it's the truth. It's so factual. I can't like be more supportive of this conversation.
Mm-hmm. Literal psychologist. I'm gonna
So
get a psych degree very soon.
so yes, and would you like to talk about it, how it can be helpful for a dungeon master, and maybe I'll talk about how
Oh,
it can be helpful for a player?
oh, ho, ho. Yes, because I think you've had a lot more experience as a player than I have.
I do. I tend to
Um,
play a bit more than you, and you tend to DM a bit more than me.
yeah, I don't like playing the game.
I love both.
It's very strange, but no, I don't like playing the game. Apparently, it's just against my nature. It's because I'm a control. Let's be honest. Let's be honest. It's because I'm a literal control freak. Um,
Maybe. I think it's just because you have a
Not
lot of
even
ideas.
maybe.
You have a lot of ideas, and you need those to be channeled. And you're like, I
Um,
have to play the same character for an extended period of time. I don't get to
oh
play
God.
7 or 8 characters. What do you mean? Like,
The way that I end up using um yes and I think also informs a lot of the way I DM in general.
mm,
And it's that, and it's exactly what you're saying. Like I have so many ideas, um, and I almost don't want to let go of any of them. So it's always yes and. So yes and is the concept in improv that instead of ever saying no or negging down on something that another actor in your scene has brought to the table, which is not to say that you can't ever say no, but your usual should be yes and. Um, because it creates more opportunity for role play, creates more opportunity for engagement, and it calls in not only yourself, but calls in that other person. And it can also lead into calling in other people, which calling in is basically a way of saying you're giving cues to other players to interact with you or to interact with whatever it is that you have done or are doing. So, for instance, you know, you have prepped a map like this, the Misty Winter Forest, and you've predicted that they're going to go to this little hut and that they're going to go to the small pit inside of this hut. They're going to go to the basement. They're going to find something. They're going to fight it. That's what you figured the session was going to be. You set those eggs out in front of them. You gave them their Easter egg baskets, and you said, go get the eggs. They decide to follow the river south instead. They're like, yeah, it's just an abandoned building. We don't care about that. They
mm.
move on. Instead of trying to find some way to keep them here, you look at your players and you say, and. Yes, and this happens. Yes, and as you move south, you find a cave entrance. And like, oh, okay. Well, they find this cave entrance and they go down the cave, and lo and behold, you, the sneaky dungeon master, who doesn't want to get rid of all that prep that they did, that cave somehow leads back to the basement. They go through catacombs and they find that there's a basement entrance, and they end up back where they started. They're like, oh, wow, this is interesting. And now you can actually have them interact and encounter all those things. They still have choice and agency. If they disregard the cave, if they disregard all of your other attempts, that is fine. Yes, and yes, you don't want to interact with this, and I'm going to give you something you do want. I'm going to give you something else. I'm going to give you something interesting. Now, that's not easy. It's not. It's probably the hardest tool
No,
to use because it
no.
means you as a dungeon master always have to be on your toes. You always have to be ready to improv, and you
We
always have
talk
to be
about it
flexible.
all the time, and I still fail at it, and I'm still trying to get better at it. It's
Uh-huh.
infinitely hard, but it is infinitely rewarding.
Uh-huh. I think the biggest thing that helps, especially in any game, so I'm a sandbox DM,
Mm,
meaning I give my players a lot of choice, a lot of agency. So I don't plan a lot of things. I have overarching ideas, but I don't plan out a session as in they're going to go to this place and do this thing and do this and this and this unless it actually calls for it. Unless they're in an instance where it calls for that, like the end of Diabolic Designs. Um, I knew exactly where they were going. I knew exactly how it was going to happen because that's what the story at that point called for. There
we
were narrative
spent
reasons
two
for it.
years, 2 years saying that that's what we were gonna do.
Yes, exactly. 2 years culminating into the thing. So it's like, okay, here's the thing. I'm going to flesh out this thing really well because I know where it's going. I know what I want to see from it. I know what my players want to see from it. So I'm going to do that. But on a regular session, in between storylines or in between big story arcs, in between big boss battles, in between dungeon crawls, the world in my games are their oysters, and I allow that to happen. So I use a lot of yes and for that reason.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I um I think yes and is one of the most powerful tools in our disposal. Period.
For sure, yeah. And I think it's a tool. It's like a muscle. Yes, and like you as a DM, if you're just learning and just starting as a DM, or even if you're a veteran DM and you're just gonna start incorporating this type of mentality, start small. Just try, and do your best at it. And the more you do it, the easier it will become, and the more ability you'll have to pivot on the fly. And you'll surprise yourself. Sometimes you'll be like, "Wow, I did a really good job that time." Like that's a great way to pivot to a yes and right. And I think the biggest thing that you'll be surprised with is the more you start incorporating it, the not only the better that these stories that you create with your players that they will become, but the fun you'll have will increase. Like the fun shared with you and the players at the table when you're creating that story together is so much more rich than that's a regular old dungeon crawl session. Um, so again, those like long-term reward type things. I think yes and is a great tool for players. Um, in general, I'll just touch on this real quick. I think it's great for any player to kind of see dungeon master, try being a dungeon master, and to try being a player. I think everybody should be on the other side of it, right? At least once or twice, just to see what it's like. But for a player, um, in the regard of acting or theater or improv, right? When we are role playing and we are acting out with our other characters, it's very much a live improv session. And as the Lord Master was saying, yes and is a tool that comes from improv itself. And so what I mean by using this tool in your role play is you're, say, at a river with a bridge and your one of your players is for some reason doesn't want to cross the bridge. It's completely obvious that everyone can just walk across this bridge right now, but one of the players says, "No, F it. I want to go through the river," right? You could say, "No, the bridge is safe. We're walking across the bridge," right? Or you could say, "Yes, and then maybe be like, "Oh, you know what? Perhaps we can, use this to our advantage if we sneak across the river and don't just give away our position crossing the bridge. Maybe there's something more behind what this character is saying or doing, and if there's not, add it. Add that something more." Um, and again, it can be hard, but I feel like from a player, you can kind of just wait around for opportunity where you can see this really cool opportunity to let a scene kind of go in a certain direction. Um, and I, as a player, now that I kind of think this way, like I wait for somebody to push the scene in a direction, and I just like hop on yes and I'm just like, oh, the homeboy said this, yes and we're all doing this now because now two of us are saying it, and now two of us are saying it, now three of us are saying it, now the whole party's doing it,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you can just make anything happen by just tacking a yes and onto it. And once you witness the power, you're just like, ooh, I'm gonna use this for my own advantage, like in my head, I wanted us to go investigate the third robbery site from Sunday night, right? I wanted to investigate the third robbery site, and then Robin kind of mentioned it, and I was like, yes, and fucking hit that button. We're all going to that thing, and my character's gonna make it happen. So you can use it for your advantage, but I think the greatest thing as a player is what it does, and it's the same thing with improv, is it keeps the scene live. It keeps everybody in character, and it keeps the scene moving. If you're watching an improv uh, show, a comedy show, right? Or like even think of was whose line is it anyway, right? That's something that a lot of people have seen or watched. If not, just go watch a couple shows. It's great. Go check a YouTube video on it. But imagine if you have one of those guys in the middle of the scene, they're doing some weird wonky stuff like dudes like sitting on each other as lawn chairs, right? And using human props as lawn chairs. Like imagine if one of them just said no, no, I'm grabbing a different prop. You know, like it breaks the scene, it breaks the immersion. It's not the funny thing. The funny thing, the fun thing is them committing to the scene and embracing the awkwardness or feeling comfortable in an uncomfortable situation, right? Because they're with, say, four other actors that they've worked with for several years or several months, and they've talked to each other about their boundaries and respect each other. So it's totally okay for them to sit on each other and pretend they're lawn chairs, right? And as the onlooker, you think that's a really funny scene for them to act out, right? And that's pretty much whose line is it, anyways? In a nutshell, is just
Exactly.
the four most comfortable theater geeks ever, just being goofy on stage for full improv fun. It's like I think honestly, like people don't realize. I mean, this is back to like social experiment, blah blah blah. People don't realize like how much more acting, improv, and theater skills kind of come up than like gaming knowledge or strategy, right? Um, and how important it can be, right? I think it's a real
Hmm.
it's a weird realization, but like I was big in theater when I was younger. I did some musical theater and some plays and stuff, right? And I didn't really think that Dungeons and Dragons would ever, kind of like stimulate that part of me, that side of me, right? That theater mind. And I was like, wow, look at how many things that I learned in those fields kind of apply and carry over to our games now for me. That's very cool.
There's so much that we end up kind of gleaming just from playing and gathering. Um, and I think, I've realized that so much of what I've called my sort of DM style is informed by the movies I've watched, the television shows I enjoy, the comic books that I've collected.
Hmm.
Um, like the reason why I love like superhero-esque stories so much is because
Yeah.
I've collected comics since I was a kid. The reason why I love The Chosen One is because Buffy the Vampire Slayer is one of my favorite pieces of media. Like the reason why I feel like I am good at improv is all the late nights as a child staying up watching Whose Line Is It Anyway? And
Yeah,
it's so funny that
right.
you actually brought that up because it's just like I think that's where I got my improv chops from.
It resonates. I think so.
Watching people like Wayne do amazing things with little prompts and
Right.
run the world.
And just I think just how in general how comfortable they are with each other as actors, right? They do a lot of really funny stuff, and that shows from like the '90s too, right? So just for those guys to be that exo-central and that out of their shell is just super enriching and inspiring. But what I love about what you brought up is just how much media kind of helps us, and I don't think we realize, like the media that we consume and the stuff that we watch and stuff, it it inspires our D&D, and I don't think people realize how much that kind of plays a hand, right? And in that same regard, if you're trying to maybe boost your Dungeon and Dragons like session or kind of inspiration, if you're lacking for things, watch some improv, go see some theater,
Mm-hmm.
find some new type of movie that's not in your normal wheelhouse, right? Start experimenting with other types of genres and stuff like that, because what I've found in Dungeons and Dragons as a dungeon master and even as a player, everything kind of transcends both sides. I think this one hits more for a dungeon master. But you need to be a renaissance person. You need to know everything about everything, right? If your players go into a cheese house, you need to now know how to make cheese and how to talk
Oh
about how
God.
to make cheese. And if you then leave that cheese house and you go to a winery, you need to know everything about wine and you need to talk about. So like you as a person to be a dungeon master need to just know a lot about
Or be fast at Googling.
society, or be fast at googling, or both, or both, right?
Both.
A lot about
It
like
has to be so
society,
much.
culture.
Yeah.
I think culture is the biggest one for me, and that's something I'm like trying to get better at, is trying to emulate culture a bit better. I grew up in a small town. I've only seen so many cultures for so long a period of time, right? So it's hard for me to emulate one that isn't really one of my own. And that's something that I've been trying to work on. Is just like, how do I make a culture feel different from city to city inside my world? Um, and it's difficult, and it's something that I kind of can see like off the top, something that I've been working on in that regard. Um,
Hell yeah. I think improv is probably one of those god tools. Like we have god stats in
S
D&D.
tier.
Yeah. If you've got that skill, like you're kind of set. You can do almost anything. But it's all about being quick, being quick and being able to do it on the fly.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to pivot. Pivot.
But defend.
Pivot. Um
Yes, and I have
but
another.
ooh.
That's a new one. I like that one.
Will you tell us about that one? I'm gonna go grab a quick
No,
drink.
that was it. That's my phrase, my catchphrase. Yes, and I'll have another. Yes,
Yeah,
and.
oh yes, and I'll have another. Not me thinking you had another.
I could talk about the map. So what you see here is we have. I'm doing Rocky Badlands is the first one. So I figured Rocky Badlands. I'm like, where would that be? Where does that kind of exist? I think it's kind of deserty, probably like I know deserts normally have a lot of rock outskirts where the sand has, dissipated through some cracks or crevices, and maybe more rocks have been started to jut out. So I started adding, some more, so a little bit of sand, darkened it up. Um, However, I don't want to use the red rock because I want to save the red sandstone rock for like full desert. I'm talking like big dunes. Um, so I'm gonna switch it to the gray rock, I think, which kind of has like a little like moss in the cracks. You can see like a little green coloration in it, and I think that
Mm.
that matches the light amount of bushes and flora I kind of added around in the area. So it looks like there's some moisture here. It looks like it's not fully arid. And then this is pretty much, if you're looking at it, Lore Master, this pretty much is like, I'm going to do just a straight road. Just a straight road on a 20 by 20 battle map. I thought that if you're on this map, it's going to be just a random encounter. I think this map doesn't need to be much bigger than 20 by 20 because players are going to be at the bottom or the top of the road, and from the left, the right, or the road in front of them, you're going to put something in front of them. So I thought keep them small, keep them sassy.
Ooh. It is. It's light and sassy.
And then like I was saying before, I'll do one in each genre. I think there was about 10 genres I kind of just scripted out, wrote out. Um, then I'll add, like a fork with a road with a fork, a turn in the road. So then, say somebody has a long-term journey, or say they have 2 days of travel, you can take two road maps that match and have two encounters for 2 days of travel, right? You do one map for the first day, long rest, etc., and then a map for the second day, and then they've arrived wherever they've arrived. And in that regard, I think after I'm done with this road project, I'll do a campsite. So I'll just do like a tent or a wagon on each one of these genres. So that way someone can go road, campsite, road.
Mm. Okay. Look at you with your generic map making.
Right? So I think this is a good. I'm stepping up at the bat. First swing of the day. I'm like, ooh, let me just try and base hit. I'm like, let me get a base hit. Let me just get on base right now. I'm lead off, right?
I
So
want one of those. Bring me one of those maps, sir.
more maps.
Bring me one of them there maps.
I find your lack of maps disturbing.
Me too. For those of you watching the stream and seeing how disorganized my computer is, don't judge me.
Organize that shirt.
Nah, there's too many files. I might as well just burn it.
So, do you want to know a really fun project that's super short and will make you fall in love with organizing your shit?
No.
So, if you take a small PNG file that's
No.
about like 30 megabytes by like or 30 pixels by 30
Mitchell.
pixels. So if you all you have to do is just go and save as ICO. And if you save a picture as an ICO and not a PNG, it can now be right click on the file, go to properties, customize, add ICO file for its image. And so it's literally that easy to make your own custom file images.
I will never do that.
So
I'm
now
telling you right now.
you can not only organize your stuff, but you can make it as pretty as you want and it's customized. So you saw what I did. I did a rainbow collage of Dungeon Alchemist bottles.
I eventually find it. It's fine.
I eventually find it fine. I feel you. That is what my heart says. This is what my
I don't
heart
have it. I just don't have it in me right now,
my
or anytime soon.
my true being is traveling the universe with a single bag of holding that I throw everything into one single bag.
Every single thing in.
Into the same
Yes.
pouch, not multiple pouches, just it holds it all like a sack, right? A satchel. And when I need it, I reach in and I dig around until I grab it and I find it and I have it. And that's just how I lived life for a long time. And I'm starting to change and as I grow a little bit.
I don't need to change. I'm perfect. Hey, look, there it is. Okay, we got 2 maps. Just like that. Both these maps are from Dungeon Alchemist. They aren't cartographer maps, excuse me, but
Sacrilege.
they are pretty cool.
Are these your Sunday maps?
Say one more time.
The Cyber maps?
No, they are from Dungeon Alchemist. I'm prepping for a brand new campaign starting in maybe a week or so.
Nice. Your druids?
Yes, the druids.
Nice. Awesome.
The druids indeed. And let me just make sure.
Yeah, I gotta get back on my Daggerford grind. I think I want to start just running one shots in the space. I don't think I'm fully ready for like a full campaign and whatnot. And I think
I think you're more ready than you are.
well I am. I just think like mentally and work wise, like everything, I just have a lot on my plate right now. So I wanna like ease myself into it. So I think in this regard I will just do like free to play one shots in the Daggerford and just use that as a advertising technique to kind of build interest and also just verse myself in the space in the world. And who knows, maybe just doing these little one shots will just give me more ideas about the world so I can build it, flesh it out a bit more. Because I have prepared a lot of it and stuff, but I've never actually rolled it out the gate. So
I mean, I think you worry a lot more about some of the things that just that do and don't matter, right? Like if you have the bones, if you have the things that make it work and function, your players will help you figure out and decide the rest. But that's just how I do things.
For sure.
Doesn't
Yeah,
mean that
yeah,
it's the
definitely.
right way or the wrong way, but
No, not at all. I mean, but also like you got this is like my first attempt at a pay to play session, so I also need to figure out how to market and network myself. So finding people to, come and play a long-term campaign with me in a P2P format, isn't just like something you do overnight, right? So I just need to like kind of sit down and so essentially, just the way my brain works, I compartmentalize things, and my wife thinks I'm just like I'll do this on the weekend to get off on this, like to get just so I don't have to do it. But it's more or less just how my brain works. Like so, like for like the TikTok videos, I compartmentalize that for about a month, and I was just like, no, no, no. Literally, that meme I showed you, the ADHD trying to do something that I'm not. No, but it is. I have a gun pointing at your face. I don't care. I'm not doing it. I'll do that for a month on something, and then I'll finally get that inspiration spark and turn my life around and do that thing that I've been wanting to do. So I'm starting to get to that point, I think. Um, I think that's a good way to kind of just start things off to try and build some traction.
I will say I love that for you.
If I find some people that have a good time and are interested, I'll let them know like, hey, this can be played in a long-term format. I'm looking for people. I'll put you on the list.
Oh no. Come back, Image.
So yeah, I'm just putting some light rocks, and this is something that I want to make sure is that I'm a curator. I'm not gonna sit here and just pump out a random AI generated bullshit. This is a battle map. It needs to have places that the players can move to. It needs to have cover. It needs to have function as a D&D game play map. So you see here I have like this little like runway for a tunnel. Someone could take
It
cover
needs
behind these
elevation.
rocks. Yep. Well,
I want to see some elevation.
and
We don't get enough elevation on maps.
it's a basic map. It's just a basic map.
I mean, you could add a little basic elevation
But I
somewhere.
do
For,
I do agree with
for
elevation.
me, please, please, for me.
you can
One
you can
little.
jump on this rock. This rock is about 5 foot tall.
Oh, oh, fuck off. You know what I mean?
I
Give me a hill somewhere. Give me a little plateau. Give me an edge. Give me something.
let
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, fine. I'll do it on this side.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're the
Yeah.
worst. You're the worst. But now that you said it, I see it, so I'm like, all right, I can do it. And it
Just a
gives me
little
a reason to
elevation.
use this. And also, yes, okay, so yes, and
Thank you.
and you see how this works,
Yes,
everybody?
and
You see how this works, everybody? So I was thinking before, you know, rocky outcroppings normally tend to pop up where there's like cracks and crevices, right? Why don't we make a crevice and add some rocky strata and make it look like this is the outskirts of a desert? Flatten.
yes, and also known as pestering your DM.
Okay. Lower. Let's go up high. Flatten. Jump. Cut this out. And I'll show you. I'll show you how your cartographer gets down on a rocky crag quick.
Please do. Love a little rocky crag.
Mm-hmm.
Just adding walls to this map.
I'm trying to just emulate some jaggedness. It's important when using the flatten brush. If you just leave it held down, it'll pull that wall up nice and vertical, like a 90-degree angle. If you just run it quick, it'll be a little rounded, which is fine if you're looking for a slope, if you're trying to put some dirt on there, etc. But I am not. This is a crack in the rock. Rock in the crag.
Not a rock and a crag.
Rock in the crag.
Krakatoa? Krakatoa?
Krakatoa?
Krakatoa?
I'll throw you a bush. There we are. It's bigger. Oh, it already looks crag-like.
Hell yeah. Now how do they get up there?
Easy does it. Alright? Let me cook. Okay?
How did they get up there, Mitchell?
Let me cook, alright? I need to consider things.
That's valid. Consider you're considering faster.
leave me alone.
Okay. Goodbye, guys.
Leave me alone.
And this is what I was mentioning before with enduring my little sibling energy, because no one else would.
Where is this house built? It is built
Krakatoa?
there. I don't like how short it is because it really gets eaten up by how deep my crag is. So I'm going to, and I don't want to undeepen the crag. I want it to be deep. So I'm just gonna lower, flatten, boop. I'll lower this map, this part of the map. No, 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 no. Okay, so my design for the map is there was a desert. It's over there somewhere. There is now this crack in the rock, and there's probably some more cracks around it. Yes. A plateau and a ledge. Nice. Is it doing the rocky strata for me? Is it just decorating it for me? I'll take that. I accept that after doing all this work. So this is one thing I do love about this program is so a lot of the shape
Ooh.
of the topography will do natural stuff like that. So like if you're on like a forest map or like a grasslands, it'll do a little dirt, a little grass, and this will be like rock probably. This is super sharp and tall, so it just like automatically puts the crag in, the strata, which is what I was gonna put in, because it just looks really good. Looks awesome. Might be able to do something like this.
You definitely amped up the idea I had in my head. I was just like, I need a plateau or something, and you said, no, we're gonna give them a pit to fall into and die.
Mm-hmm.
I said elevation, you said no.
This
The
is the elevation. What do you mean?
No, I mean yes and.
This is it.
You said elevation, but also this is deadly.
No. Let's get it just so.
Think.
So I'll blend the sand over here. There you go. Yeah.
Where else in the world do you get a double stream? You get this wonderfulness. You get to see my wonderfulness. Then you pop over, and where's the other one? Oh, I broke it. Never mind. Just kidding.
Direct.
I totally broke it. My stream. LOL. Does this fix it? Oh, maybe it's not me. Oh, wait.
There we are. Crack, bushes.
There we go. Oh, maybe not. Keeps going black for some reason. I'm not sure why. Oh, yeah. Climb up on the boulder. Very steadily go across. Make sure you don't die.
Mm-hmm. I think that's what I'm looking for. Hmm. This
Nice. Okie dokie. I like that.
always looks great.
I love the part of the stream where we just sit and what's it called when you have kids that with ADHD kids where they don't want to play with you, they want to play beside you.
Oh, my child? Oh, you mean my child?
But there's a word for it. I forget what it's called.
Oh, look at that. That looks Gucci.
Yeah, baby.
Let's raise up these little mounds here, so it just looks like that's why the sand's falling. Little touch, little branch. Let's see. You can make this log bigger. Yeah, that's fine. Don't like you. I like you. Like this. Another path back here. Let's get rid of that. Add that here. So that's something I do tend to do is I use the AI to my advantage. So like it kind of started a patch of bushes here, like a Rorschach test almost, where I'm like, oh, I see some cover here. Let me move this bush, and that bush, and now, so I don't have to like put on new assets, and I kind of that way it's like balanced. I'm not like putting too many bushes out. I kind of have like a similar layout or format in a regard. Switch this so it bubbles out. Move this over. Yeah, another path, a path, a path, a path, a path. And some more height for our friend Lore Master.
Oh yeah, please. I love the elevation. So the reason why I asked for elevation is because it
Whoa.
makes combat dynamic very, very simply. Like in the easy.
Um,
Whoa, what is that thing? That's cool.
I didn't realize I could go that high for some reason. I didn't realize I moved the rest of this map down for no reason, I guess. But what have you? Here we are.
What have you?
I like doing it for the same reason, because whenever I make a map, I'm very very focused about like how I can use this map for D&D. How will my players take this map and say, hey, I want to do this or I want to see that, or instead of just being in a blank space that has no meaning or feel to it, I want to make sure it has those things. So like places to get cover, places to maybe sneak or hide, places to get a height advantage, right? Different mechanical
Mm.
things that people use in the game to, make the map interesting and make when you play on it fun. So we're
Ooh,
gonna
it looks so good.
do a little map trick that I
Yes.
like to do here, which is go bigger than what you need so that it looks the way you want it to look. This will be one without a crack. This will be just a ledge
Nice.
that will have a swoop. It'll swoop down with some sand here.
Oh no, it's too big.
What's that?
The map, it's too big. I gotta download a smaller version. So I'll skip that one for now. I don't know why it was just playing the same song over and over again, but I realized. Because I was like, I don't like this song. How long is this song?
So a smooth brush, well, you always got to do this on them so you can get a real slope. Otherwise, and so like as a map maker, like this is something that only comes up like as a map maker that's doing what I'm doing, right? Which is like trying to make things. So like if I'm gonna put like a height advantage or something, it's not gonna be. It might be in the middle of the map, but I'm just trying to add features to this map. So I'm doing like a small side little like almost like a tower, a lookout. Someone can run up here and just be at height advantage. I'll put a rock up there too or something. So I want to slope specifically on the edge, on the sides of maps, so they're at angles and they're placed at points where players can have advantage. Say if there's an enemy right in the middle of the map, right, which in most cases it happens. Like so, this doing this trick that I do where I expand the map to make an even slope on the side of the map only comes up because I'm like, dang, I really need to have a slope on the side of the map.
Hmm.
Do. But then you just come and you
It
delete it
looks
like
really
that,
good.
and then you get a nice even line. And I might even come in here and just tap. Oh, too much, too much. Perfect. Okay. Very nice.
What a vibe. I think it looks great. Yay, elevation. And another place for them to fall.
This should be only about 10 feet. Excuse me.
You underestimate how much a D6 can do. I'm gonna skip this one too. Oh, we're gonna skip this one. Not a huge fan of this, actually. Let's change this playlist. Oh well. Actually, it's about that time anyway.
Yeah, we're getting there.
For me at least, I might have to dip out a little earlier than usual.
We are getting there.
There we go, much better.
Hey,
Um,
hey. Oh, actually, you know
nice.
what?
I got these maps done. Just gotta do some lighting stuff. Gonna use these 3 maps. I might grab something else from the Underdark here.
I like the angle too. It adds nice shape to the map. What do you think?
Let me look real quick. It keeps going black on my screen, which is a little annoying. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Isn't that snazzy?
Top-down view, top-down view makes it a little hard to tell the elevation is there on that right side. I don't know if there's a way to like change that,
Oh, I'll just have to play around with stuff.
but it looks so good.
Almost looks like there is a road in between a like a crag, like this big rock crag in the middle of a desert or a badland.
Oh, excuse me. Make it a light source. Ooh.
Whoa.
Whoa, so cool. I love
There we go. That's what we're looking
Foundry.
for. Yeah?
Yeah, I'm getting used to it. I'm getting the hang of it now.
Nice. Dang it. Click something and it doesn't register.
Cool. Dynamic light sources.
Hmm. There we go. Let's see. One way we can make that look like there is some height there is to trick the eye. So what we will do is we will take assets that we've been using elsewhere in the map and we'll just shrink them all down a little bit.
Yeah, that's so freaking cool. And let's just grab a test actor. I love Foundry so much. One of these days, once we get through the College of Knowledge, we might start doing as I learn more about Foundry, might start doing Foundry tutorials.
Cool. Yeah, so you look at that now and a bit smaller assets and bada bing, bada boom.
Oh yeah, master of map making.
I now do not like. I don't like this current setup of bushes. This one. Add a bit of sand there. Move some of these bushes. Beautiful. So that way, bring up the map. We have, as far as things that people and players can use, we have a place that you can run around. Let me just grab a token. So we have a token here. Homeboy can run this way. Do. So there's cover there. They can now boop 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 up these stairs onto this rock across here. So I'm gonna have an advantage up here, and this also creates a third third way that this map can go. If you want, say, hey, we were on this road and now you have a chance to go off into this desert. However the DM wants to use it, you can go back here. You get some cover behind these bushes. Other side of the map, some cover. Run back here. And it's going to lead you to some cover here, some cover here. And then you can go up to another vantage point up top here. And go back here for some more cover. More cover. So just several spots that can be used on this map for ambushes, players to run, hide, etc., etc., etc. Yeah, I think that's done. Let's light it. File
It
export.
looks so good.
Image only ortho. Grids off because everybody can just add their own grid. Oh, nice. Here we go. Street road path. Open. Bad. There you go. Bad lands. Straight road. Oh, straight road. Day. I'll just type day. Or do I want to do 104? 1, 2, 3, 4. No, no. So I'll just do it like this. So here I go, exporting them just in my 4 different colors, or 4 lighting effects that I'm allowed to have. Day, dusk, night,
I'm so blessed.
and bye. Do tell. Share with the class.
Oh, there's a whole Google Drive folder with all these wonderful these wonderful maps in them.
Oh yeah?
That's why I'm so blessed.
There's honestly a lot of maps. There's a lot of maps out there, which is why I was like, I need to be giving a lot of maps because there are a lot of maps. You know, so like I need to have a big file that I can just be like, here, frickin' take this. You get 10,000 adventures. Great, awesome. So that I can get people attracted to my channel, I can get a following, and then when people have a need for something specific is when I come in. I say, hey, I'm the curator.
I'm the curator.
How may I curate for you today? Oh, Dawn. And those are some of my favorite transactions to do in business because they're very, like good vibe. Because somebody's like really inspired. They have this cool idea and they're like, yeah, bring it to life. So it's like the project's fun and we have a good communication. All right, so the first project has been completed. Badlands Straight Road.
Wow. This is my favorite lighting option.
Dawn?
Yeah, looks really good. Looks pretty.
I like Dusk. Dusk has always been my favorite. It's like this nice orange pinky hue. I have a Dusk on all my. I just did a couple beach maps. And just makes the sand look great. Oh my God, I didn't realize That this rock is not in the sand. But I don't think you can notice when it's an orthotopic. Yeah, you can't notice. The beauty of a top-down map. No.
A beauty.
Save. Honestly, and that's another thing that I've been finding success with is just trying to trim down on the expansiveness or just like be more practical with things. So like there really isn't any I've done the research, like there really isn't much for like as far as 3D input for map use, right? The VTTs just don't really support it right now. And most VTTs that do support it just have their own assets, so they're not importing like JSON files from other people. Um, so with that being said, it's like it's really almost like what am I doing when I make a map that's like fully three-dimensionally sound? It makes my brain happy. It's what my brain likes, but like it's not what I need to be doing like for like cartography, so it's like it's
Hmm.
going to be used in a two-dimensional PNG format. Just make it for a two-dimensional PNG format. The maps come out faster. I have a little bit more liberty as far as what I can and can't do with them, because like tricks of the eye, right? So things don't literally have to be the way they seem. They just have to look the way they seem. So I get like some creators leeway there.
Hell yeah.
hmm And yeah, I mean, I just finished that. That's awesome. I think it's 2 hours. It's a great stream this morning. Thanks
Great
to
stream this
everybody for
morning.
showing up. I love my lurkers. Um, as always, we love doing Ask Me Anything format. So if you guys have questions, if you have concerns, if you just want to like have a deeper explanation of the things we just chat about, please reach out. Thanks, Lo. Appreciate it as always. We'll see you
Yes,
Friday
Lo,
for
appreciate you.
the Pokemon Roundup. And we will see
Our
everybody
dedicated
else.
Pokemon
A
server.
dedicated Pokemon server. We'll see everyone else tomorrow night, 7 p.m. for Vampire the Masquerade. So nice to have you. Take care.
Take care. And I